we have explored and taken several months to go back. For those of you who were in cohort A and those of you who joined us in cohort B, we went back through the entire framework of the Hill process, all the 4 principles. We went through phases 1 through 3 and the creation of the gold standard guides. And we're now looking ahead to the phase 4 monitoring plans. It is our deepest hope that either by the time the school starts in the fall, or at least within those first few weeks of the school year in the fall, each of our schools will have a continuous monitoring plan around at least one gold standard implementation guide. Will all of you get your schools exactly there in the same way at the same time? No. But as we look at year 5 being our opportunity to make an impact on these cohort B schools, that's what we're going to try to accomplish. And again, where and how that happens, and the variation of the timing is going to be based on your best judgment about how to move your school forward. So let's look at a simple definition of the continuous monitoring plan. First of all, it builds off the gold standard implementation guide. That's why when we looked at that alignment graphic that shows all 5 phases, we put the gold standard guide right in the middle. It's the fulcrum of the work. Everything pivots, everything leads up to it, and everything else pivots off of it. So where the time you're taking to work with your schools on those guides is so valuable, because those guides can then help you identify measures, make progress benchmarks, and figure out a data collection, analysis, and reporting plan. And of course, we have the continuous monitoring plan because it's one of the fundamental research supported ideas of school change. What gets monitored gets done. And the secret of success, again from the literature, is one of our other foundational ideas, and that is we don't try to change everything at once. We don't eat the elephant whole. We look at how to make that change in a series of short renewal cycles, focusing on 1 to 3 priority growth targets at a time. So think of this work of building the monitoring plan as similar to what the CDC does and other entities might be doing as we monitor the growth that we are making in tackling the COVID virus. You identify the needed measures. So this little graphic shows just some examples of some of the measures that have been included in this recovery process from COVID. And you'll notice every one of them is a behavior, because we can't measure ideas. We have to measure the behaviors that exemplify the ideas. So if we're going to start with the gold standard guides, the first thing we can do is start with the specific actionable student priority growth target and look for measures that can help us monitor progress in real time at regular intervals over a short cycle. And when we talk about a short cycle, it could be as short as a marking period, a semester, maybe as long as a full year, depending on how significant the amount of growth students need to make on that priority growth target. Once we have the measures that will allow us to follow student growth in real time and benchmark over periods of intervals of 2, 3, 4 weeks at the most, then we can add measures that will allow us to have real-time growth data on adult behaviors, on the implementation of the teacher behaviors, on the development of integrity adaptations by teacher teams, on the behaviors that the principal will use to lead the work and support the change in the classroom, on the behaviors that the leadership team will use to share that leadership with the principal and support the classrooms, and on the behaviors other key personnel will use to share leadership and support. And finally, on the conditions we want to change in the school to support teacher and student priority growth targets. And those conditions can be cultural, they can be resource conditions. So those are conditions that actually make the school a better place in which to support literacy. And it's a wonderful idea to go back to the school-wide essential literacy practices when you look for areas where you might build better support conditions in the school. With that done, you've got at least 2/3 of the monitoring plan done, because all that's left after identifying those measures is to create benchmarks for how you want to make progress at regular intervals. That's point number 2 here. Okay. Whoops, excuse me. Point number 3 is make a plan for how you're going to collect the data from the measures, how you're going to distribute roles and responsibilities for data collection, analysis, and reporting. And I would suggest that you include protocols for team and school-wide data dialogues to develop their understanding of the progress in real time, not only with student growth, but with a growth in the adult behaviors, and in the growth of establishing integrity adaptations. So basically, that's it. That's the continuous monitoring plan. A simple overview. You'll notice that in introducing this, we're not introducing a template or a specific format, because what we hope you can do is take these ideas, these are the critical features, these are the fidelity elements, and then work with your school and figure out how to make sure those fidelity elements are incorporated into the way the school wants to build its monitoring plan and process. And that will allow the school to align that work with their work with MyKIP, rather than us imposing a specific structure on that work. Now, you'll share different formats with each other, and that's fine. At the next workshop, we'll share an example, and that will be in a certain format. But that doesn't mean that your monitoring plans for your schools have to follow that format. All you need to do is go back to this slide and the discussion in the process guide, focus on the priority, the fidelity elements, and then have fun working with your school to make sure that the way you build those fidelity elements into the school's monitoring plan makes sense to the school, fits the school, and is something that they feel they can own. So I just want to take you back to the gold standard implementation guide. The example we gave you in the last 3 months, which was a gold standard guide around read alouds. When we revised that example, we added this feature at the end of each section. So this is copied and pasted right out of the gold standard guide for the read alouds. But it shows you that if you incorporate the way you're going to assess growth right into the gold standard guide, you already have a list of measures. So whether it's observations or specific classroom and benchmark assessments that you're using for student growth, observations and walkthroughs for adult change in behavior, logs of integrity adaptations, logs of the principal and literacy coach work, team work products, you name it, you've got your measures already identified with the gold standard guide. And just to make it easy for you to go back and forth, when you go back to these slides, each one of these blue highlighted areas links back to that example.